ANA eLearning Academy is brought to you by CDN Graysheet, a trusted source of rare coin and currency valuations since 1963.
So everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today for the ANA eLearning Academy. The ANA would like to thank our eLearning partner, Graysheet, for the support for the eLearning program. Today we've got Ron Gillis, who's going to be presenting on the controversial topics of toning and cleaning. Everyone's going to be muted for this presentation, so if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A box, and I'll read them to Ron here at the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and not put off any more minutes and get you started here, Rod, and we're looking forward to it.
So, hello everyone. My name is Rod Gillis, and I'm the Education Director here at the American Numismatic Association. And today we're going to talk about two, what I believe, controversial subjects, but I want you to know that we're doing this kind of in a fun way. It's important not to take this too seriously. I've been collecting coins since I was, I believe, 12 years old, and I'm 61 now. So that's, 49 years? And so there are things that I do know, and one of the things that I know is that we all have opinions on probably toning and cleaning. So what we're going to do is this PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to give is basically two parts. The first part is about toning, and then we'll stop at that point. And if you have questions that, like Nate was suggesting, then I'll go ahead and try and field some of those that way. And then we'll move on to the second part, which is the cleaning. Okay. So when we're talking about toning, it's obvious that some people, there really are three categories. Some people like their tones, their coins toned. Some people love having toned coins. And then there's others where they prefer for their coins not to have any color at all, and they want them to be blazing white. In the 1980s and 1990s, most collectors wanted their coins choice BU, choice BU being a code for very lustrous without any color. And so this would be an example of a coin that would grade very well in the 1980s and 1990s. Matter of fact, coins were frequently dipped to remove any trace of color. Here's an example of a coin that we could consider to be blazing white. We don't know if it's in its original skin or not. Probably not. And I say that because it's been estimated that between 80 and 85% of all Morgan dollars out there have been cleaned at one point or another. There are very few that, like I said, are their original skin. Especially after the 1980s and 90s, if it had any color on it at all, it was probably removed. But as with everything, times change, and many collectors came to accept toned coins in the 2000s and up till today. Here's an example of a Bennington, Vermont commemorative $50, and you can see that it has a considerable amount of toning. Some of you may consider that to be not an attractive coin at all. Personally, I like it. I think it's a very attractive coin. But there is no right or wrong answer. I mean, if you consider it not attractive, I'm not here to try to convince you that it is. Some collectors actively seek toned coins, intensely toned coins. And here's an example of one. This is the Texas commemorative, and you can see that it's pretty intense. It has colors of gold, brown, there's blue, there's greens. I can see some hint of red, and there's even a point where it's turning black. Question is, where are you on the toning scale? Are you a blazing white person? Are you a light or Easter egg type of toning? Like this one, this is lightly toned, not the intense colors that we've seen before. Or all the way. Are you one who really likes the intense toning? What is toning? Toning is a discoloration of a coin. Toning is corrosive and is found most often on silver and copper coins. Toning can occur on coins made of nickel, but not very often. Gold coins can tone, but it is not the gold itself that tones, rather the impurities that are added. Remember, with the United States coins, there's 10% copper. However, it has been observed that gold mined from different regions can have different hues. Let me show you what I mean. So here's a Dahlonega gold coin, and the gold that was mined in and around Dahlonega was known for having sort of a green hue. And if you look at this coin carefully, you see that there's sort of a greenish aspect to it. If you compared that to this coin, which is an S coin minted in San Francisco gold was noted for having more red in it, a reddish hue. So I'll go back so that you can see and compare again the two. Here's the Dahlonega. And this is the San Francisco. While we know that toning is corrosion, it is still a bit of a mystery because some coins are noted for toning while others are not. Contributing factors seem to be, number one, impurities inside the mined metal. Another reason for toning is a minting process to include the preparation of dyes, the preparation of planchets, and coin storage. Weather at the time the coin was minted can have a say in toning, and the type of storage for the coin, where the coin is kept, subject to direct sunlight. So all these can have a factor in toning. What I'm saying is, well, we have a really good idea as to what causes toning. It's not something that, it's not a one size fits all. There are different reasons why coins tone, and it can be any of the reasons that we have listed right in front of you. Often people wonder, can coins tone within a holder? Take a look at this coin, for example. This is an 1878 S Morgan dollar, and you'll look at the label, and it says MS63, but what's fascinating is it says 100% white. You can see that both on the obverse and reverse, this coin has exhibited some toning. Now, it's not very intense, but this coin certainly is not 100% white. This is from an old PCI holder. Here's what's interesting about this coin. Picture on the left that you see was taken about 5 years ago. And the picture on the right was taken just a couple of months ago. Look at the progression of the toning. Look how the coin has toned significantly in that time period. So the answer is that coins can most definitely tone while inside of a holder. Again, I'll go back. That was originally when I obtained the coin. You can see that there's light toning. There's some golds and reds. 5 years later, you can see that there's some dark blues and even some purples. And now look at the coin, how much it has toned since then. So most definitely, coins can tone even if they've been slabbed. Speaking of toning, let's take a look at the color progression. So when coins begin to tone, they usually tone a yellow or gold color. Then they move to a brown, which is really an advanced yellow. Next, it's blue, then red, then green, purple, and finally black. And the truth is, eventually all toned coins will turn black, and that is the sad truth. Now, it may not turn black in your lifetime. It may not turn in your grandchildren's lifetime. But what I can tell you is, eventually all toned coins will eventually turn black. Here's an example. This is the poster child for coins that turn black. For some reason, and there's some theories about it. The Colombian Expo $half turns dark to a black faster than any coin that I know. Now, this coin is actually taken from my collection. And the reason I like this coin, even though it has turned very dark, is that the black is sort of a satiny finish. And our photographer, Rob Kelly, who I thought did an excellent job with these images, tried his best for you to be able to see that there's a satiny color to it, or a satiny consistency, I should say. And I really liked this because I hadn't seen it before. So this is something that I chose to put in my collection because I really like the appearance of this particular coin. Is there such a thing as artificial toning? And that's a philosophic subject because you'll submit a coin and it might come back as artificial toning. And you might say, I had nothing to do with that. I didn't try to artificially tone the coin. I think that the grading company missed that. And I think that there's a fair amount of time when the grading companies, all grading companies, can miss out on whether a coin has been artificially toned or not, both in instances where the coin has been artificially toned and instances where it hasn't. It's very difficult to be able to tell. One of the things that the grading companies use is they use that progression chart that we saw earlier. So if, for example, the coin is entirely dark blue and that there's no other color next to it, that's an indication that it may have been artificially toned through heat. That's especially true when we're looking at nickel coins. Nickel coins that are dark blue probably have been treated with a high amount of heat. But the question comes up, really, is there such a thing as artificial toning? So, for example, suppose that you took a coin and you put it into an album that you know that in past examples have shown that that album causes coins to tone. Is that artificially toning? Or suppose that you set a coin on a windowsill and the sun gets to it. Is that artificial toning? So the answer, I'm not sure that there is a correct answer, but it is a good question to ask about whether there really is artificial toning or not. Now, what's interesting is that coin doctors, and I've talked to several, the problem that coin doctors have when they are artificially toning a coin is that they really have a tough time controlling the toning. So if you're looking for progressions, that often the progressions are not found in a coin that has been doctored. And of course, we've all heard of ways that coins can be toned. We've heard of putting a coin inside of a potato and baking it and that causing to tone, wrapping up coins in napkins that have acid in them. I know that the big one was Taco Bell. If you wanted to try to tone a coin using a napkin, you would Taco Bell napkins were supposed to be the best that could tone a coin. And then again, you know, they're putting them inside of a holder that is known to have acid in its paper are all examples of ways that coins can be toned. So there really is a fine line between artificial toning and toning that just naturally happens. All right, we're going to stop here because I want to spend some time, if anyone has any questions about toned coins and or they want to express an opinion. Before I attack the questions that you have, if there are any out there, I do want to say that times have changed, that as I mentioned in the 80s and 90s, the grading companies sort of looked down in the 90s about coins being toned. And I know that that's not the case anymore. If a coin has great eye appeal and is toned attractively, it can actually be raised by a point. I'll use myself as an example. I had a Franklin $half that I graded at 63. It was a poster child for being a 63 coin, but it had some attractive toning to it. And I sent it off to one of the third-party grading companies. And I told someone who works with me here, I said, this is a 63 coin. It's 63 all day, but the toning is really attractive and it's going to improve the eye appeal. I said, so at that point, it's going to come back as a 64. And sure enough, it came back as a 64. And I fully believe that the reason was that they moved it up because of the attractive toning. Now, I don't know people who grade at the third-party grading companies personally. I don't know whether they would deny or say that, yeah, that's true. But what I do know is that the grading companies, when we're talking about mint state coins, they're market grading. They're not really grading the coin. They're looking at the coin and saying, okay, if we put this coin into the market, how much money would it bring? And therefore, we will assign that number, that grading number, to the coin. And in the instance of this Franklin half dollar that I've been describing to you, it was my idea that the market would have bore this coin to be a 64 instead of a 63. Hence, that's why it came back. All right. So, Nate, do we have any questions that people were interested in, or opinions that people wanted to talk about?
Yeah, there was a few different things. So right out the gate, a little bit ago, Mr. James Sibley was asking regarding the 1892 Columbian Expo half dollar. The holder appears to have moisture inside it. What is this? I think I noticed what he was talking about. It almost looks like maybe a little bit of a glare or something. But I'm not sure if it was water or moisture. But
no, it's not moisture. Although I can certainly understand why you would see that. It's more of an air bubble.
Yeah.
That you see. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's not moisture. It's in the diaphragm that holds the coin. There's an air pocket in there. So that's probably what you're referring to. That's a good question.
So there was quite a bit going on in the chat box. So let me back up here a little bit and see if I've caught everything. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, some are comments, some are questions. So I love beautifully toned coins, but the prices for them are outrageously ridiculous. And since I don't like ugly toned coins, I prefer lustrously white coins. Yeah, there's a handful of comments that are kind of leaning towards white coins. So it was kind of like a vote when you were proposing that at a certain slide, a few slides back. I don't consider speeding up the natural toning process as artificial toning. I think maybe he was talking about, like you were talking about, the like if you put it into a folder that you knew would speed up the process, is that artificial? I think that's kind of what he's meaning by that.
Right.
Here's a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Rod.
That's okay. Let me just speak on that real quickly. So that goes back to the philosophy of whether there is such a thing as artificial toning.
Sure.
And I would like to say, I'm not prepared to come out and say, no, there's no such thing as artificial toning. I mean, like I said, if you take a coin and you put it in a baked potato or a potato and then you bake it, to me, that's you're artificially toning the coin. However, I understand the other side, and what I would use as an example is recently I bought my wife a ring, and it had a garnet in it. Okay. And it's a naturally occurring garnet. But there are garnets out there that are lab created. And you can look at the two. I think I can spot a difference, but chemically, the garnet that occur naturally and the lab created garnet, chemically, they're exactly the same. So I like to use that with toned coins. So if I artificially, or if I hasten the ability for a coin to tone, and I hold it next to a coin that has taken its good old sweet time to tone, and we were chemically analyzing this, that they would come out the same. So I understand what you're saying, and I don't deny that there are people out there who say, listen, hastening the process, they're still the same coin at the end result, and I won't disagree with that. And that's why I mean it's a very controversial subject.
Sure.
I think that there are limits, though, that when a coin doctor is trying to uh, bring a coin to tone overnight, as opposed to something that might take months. I kind of think that we're at a fine line there, but that's a good point that you brought up.
Sure.
All right, Nate.
There's a couple more, a few more. Does the progression of colors differ for nickel coins versus silver?
Boy, that's a really good question. The answer is that generally it takes more for coins to show toning with a nickel than it does with silver. I still say the progression is the same. Let me tell you, I've seen some examples of copper coins that are these green and electric blues and unreal. So the idea that, for example, that copper cents can only turn sort of one color is not true. They go through the progressions as well. But I can understand where you're saying, you know, do they tone just like a silver coin? With nickels, I've noticed that rarely do you get to the intense darker colors like the violets and the reds. You know, you don't see red very often with nickel coins. They kind of go from the yellow to maybe sort of an orangey color, and then they head towards black. I mean, you see a lot of black tone nickels as opposed to the silver coin. So I would say generally the progression starts and ends the same way. Maybe the middle few with nickels are different than they would be with the silver.
Sure. Tony asked, can cleaned coins later show toning?
Yes. The answer is yes. As a matter of fact, if you clean a coin incorrectly, often a yellow gold residue will appear rather rapidly on the coin. So yes, the answer is definitely yes, with the caveat that also if you do not rinse the coin completely, that can be a byproduct of what you've done. Good question.
This one made me chuckle a little bit. I like it. If you leave a coin on the sunny windowsill, like you had mentioned, Ron, roughly how long will it take to get some toning?
It's, you know, and that goes back to what we talk about when we say, you know, we know we have a good idea of the factors that cause toning, but I think it's safe to say that if anybody came to you and said, this is the exact reason this coin toned, I'd kind of take that with a grain of salt. And we know this because some coins, some Morgan dollars just never tone. They just don't. And then there are Morgan dollars that tone much more often and much more rapidly. And like I said, when we go back to the Colombian Expo half dollars, I rarely see Colombian Expos that are bright, you know, white. The ones that I see, and certainly if they've been circulated in any shape or form, are heading towards the dark end of the spectrum. I occasionally see some that are the darker colors of the violets and maybe the reds, but I do. I'm pretty sure that the Colombian Exposition half dollars, that a good portion, if not all of them, I could be wrong, but I think I read this, that a good portion of them were actually made at the Colombian Exposition. So, you know, now we're taking coins that are minted outside of the regular areas where coins have been minted, and that can bring a whole lot of factors into play. Not only that, but if you look at the quarters, I've noticed a lot of them are very dark. So what that tells me is something along the minting process, whether it was the weather or whether it was the dye grease they used, or in preparation for the dyes, something was going on that hastened the reason for those Colombian Expos to darken so quickly.
Yeah, I have one, that exact same coin, and mine looks almost identical to yours. It's got a lot of black around. Well, maybe not identical to yours, but mine has a lot of darker colors around the edge. There are So, I mean, there's a handful of comments, and then there are some more questions. So my question to you, Rod, is: do we want to address each one right now?
Good question. So
Excuse me.
let's take two more.
Okay, yeah, and that I didn't know how much longer you had when we wanted to transition to the cleaning aspect.
Right. I'm going to go to the cleaning in just a few moments, and but yeah, let's take two more toning questions.
Okay. Let's see here. When I was a kid, someone told me to soak the penny in vinegar. I'm curious if it actually if it actually damages the penny, or any information from coin experts. I did it once, and it seemed to get rid of the glossy finish.
So when you're talking with copper, copper is sort of a metal of its very own. I know that with ancient coins, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with cleaning. With ancient coins, a lot of people remove any kind of residue by using olive oil. So I would think that vinegar would probably work the same way. I haven't heard of people using that to actually make silver coins bright, bright white. But that doesn't mean that, I just haven't heard of that. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And the second one?
Oh, sorry. You know, when I closed out that window, I went into the Q&A. The second half of it, forgive me, there was a lot that came in. Some of the folks were kind of answering each other's questions and comments. Or any information. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Or any information from coin experts. I did it once, and it seemed to get rid of the glossy finish. I think you already kind of answered what he was asking. And like you said, I think you're going to address more of it when we get into the cleaning aspect.
Cleaning, correct. Did you have one more, or are we done?
Yeah, let's see. Have any toned coins been analyzed by a scanning electron microscope that can shows the element spectrum of the coin's surface?
We know that with toning does attack the surface. I'm sure something like that has been done in the course of numismatics. I'm just not aware of exactly when that or who was responsible for doing that. Here's the thing concerning grading tone coins, and then with that we'll move on to cleaning. The thing that you have to be careful about if you like tone coins is that when you're learning how to grade coins, you really have to be very careful when you're grading tone coins, because tone coins can hide a lot of sins. So you have to develop this idea where you're looking beneath the toning to make sure that you see what needs to be seen. And there really is an art to that. And like anything, the best way to be able to learn how to do that is by practicing. So it's really important that if you do like toned coins and you would like to buy raw toned coins to put in your collection, and I have done this. I mean, I would say that the vast majority of coins that are in my collection, at least when I bought them, were raw. You have to learn how to be able to look beneath the toning to see if there's anything going on. And sometimes there is, and sometimes you have to pass. And if you just took a casual look at it without looking carefully and using a loop, for example, you could miss it. And I have. I mean, you learn by experience. There have been times when I've bought a coin and I thought for sure we were good. And then as I looked at it more carefully under proper light, underneath the toning, I've realized that it was probably an old cleaning that happened many years ago, but it was a cleaning nonetheless, and it damaged the coin. So the point is, if you are one of those people who like toned coins, make sure that you're very careful if you're looking at a raw coin, that you look at it and learn the skill of being able to look beneath the toning to make sure that the coin is everything that you want it to be. Okay? All right, let's now move on to cleaning coins. Here's a real quick story. I've done a series of video vignettes that are on the ANA website. You can also find them on YouTube. And one of the video vignette was dealt with misconceptions. And we got onto the subject of cleaning coins. And I couldn't believe the feedback from people who were really angry with me because I was advising them not to clean their coins. And they were saying, you know, who are you to tell me what I should do with my coins? And of course, the answer is, I'm not trying to suggest to you that I completely understand that they're your coins. And if you want to clean them, you have every right to do so. But I wouldn't do it. And there are several reasons why. So we're going to explore that sort of today. So if you are one of those people who just, you know, I want to clean my coins and nobody's going to tell me not to clean my coins, have at it. They're your coins. My only comment to you is just don't expect for other people to share your enthusiasm, especially serious collectors, because they're not. Okay. All right. So there are two ways in which coins are cleaned. There's mechanically, and that means moving metal with a soft cloth or towel to all the way to an extremely abrasive tool. Okay, that's what we mean by mechanically. And then there's chemically, dipping a coin in a paste or solution. And going back to mechanically, it can be something as soft as a soft cloth, or you can use a Dremel tool. I mean, those are the two extremes. I suppose I've seen both examples. And you know, again, chemically is dipping. And I do want to say at the outset that people say, well, you know, you're against cleaning, but what about ancient coins? And it's true. Probably every ancient coin that has been minted has been conserved. And I understand that because it's been in the ground for thousands of years, or it's been encased in concrete or something. And I understand that you have to do that with these coins. And fortunately, ancient coins are very hardy, and that's not an issue. So, you know, I understand that there are always exceptions to the rule. Basically, when I'm talking about cleaning coins with you today, I'm talking about modern coins. Okay? Here's the official stance of the ANA. Do not clean your coins, as you will most likely reduce the desirability and value of the coin. If you must clean the coin or you will die, the least invasive way, mild dish detergent and distilled water, is best. Okay. So this is not just coming from me, although I believe this. I'm sort of a purist. It is the official stance of the ANA. And, you know, there's a lot of people who say, you know, if I just clean it a little bit, no one will ever know. And chances are that people who are been in the hobby for certainly as long as I have, they can spot clean coins a mile away. We may make a mistake every once in a while, but the chances of you being able to pull one past somebody who is very knowledgeable in numismatics about a coin as to whether or not you've cleaned it, you know, that's not good. And I know I deal with dealers all the time. And one of the things that dealers talk about when they're on the phone with somebody who is interested in selling them coins, but are not numismatists, the first thing they'll say to them is, before you bring the coins to me, please make sure you do not clean them, because people do. They have an old worn coin and they want to clean it. And what they wind up doing is now they have a shiny old worn coin. And there's nothing that looks worse than a shiny old worn coin. Okay. Why do people clean coins? Generally, people clean coins because they're dirty and worn. After cleaning, they now have a shiny worn coin. And nothing looks more false than a shiny worn coin. There are exceptions. It has been estimated that 80% of Morgan dollars have been cleaned at one time. Generally, the Morgans have at some point been cleaned with a solution like jewel luster and rinsed very quickly. Okay, you really can't get away with mechanical cleaning unless it's so minor that it's hard to speak of. Generally, cleaning with a solution is much more subtle than mechanically trying to clean a coin. Now, here's something that I want to show you. I want you to look carefully at this picture right here. because this talks about what luster is. And I think when you talk about the subject of cleaning, what's really important is that you first understand what luster is and how it's created. We have something called Summer Seminar that all of our members are available to come to during the summer. And there are various classes. There are classes on grading. There are classes on counterfeits. One of the classes, and I always recommend this class to someone who is either just learning how to grade or is ready to attempt to learn how to grade, is take the class called Modern Minting Process, because I truly believe that until you know how a coin is made and minted, you really will have a very difficult time learning how to grade a coin. Luster is created by metal flow while the coin is being minted. It is the reflection from the peaks and valleys located on the coin. So if you look at this, this is actually a cent that has been greatly enlarged. And if you look at the cent, what you're looking at peaks and valleys and how it is reflected by light. And that is what luster is. Since luster is created as part of the minting process, once luster is lost, it can never be recreated. Let me say that again, because if you don't know this, this is the one thing I want you to leave in the time that you're spending with me today. It's a really important concept. Luster is created during the minting process from pressure, metal flow, and once luster is lost, it can never be brought back, ever. Cleaning and general wear reduces the distance between the peaks and valleys. So if a coin is circulating, your hand is rubbing up against these peaks and wearing away at the peaks so that they become more level with the valleys. Repeated cleaning does the same thing. So that's why you're actually losing luster every time you've cleaned or handled a coin, okay? Now, what happens is, maybe you've encountered a Morgan dollar and it just has this washed out, dull appearance to it. Chances are what's happened is that it's been cleaned one too many times, and now all the peaks are gone and there's very little for light to reflect off of. So please, if there's nothing else you get from me today, I hope you get that, because it's real important. There's a difference between mint luster and shininess. Now, it's really hard, very hard, to be able to show effectively through images mint luster, okay? But I tried my best. Here we have on the left-hand side, this is a coin that is shiny, probably through mechanical cleaning, okay? On the right, this is a coin that has a little luster left to it. It's not nearly as shiny as the one on the left. Even though it's listed as details, if you held this coin and you tipped it, you would be able to see that the cartwheel effect is still there. So it was a very minor cleaning and there's luster still there. And I would say that a lot of us, probably me included, may not have caught that with the one on the right-hand side. The one on the right-hand side, you may have been fooled and said, well, it doesn't look like it's been cleaned to me, and submit it. There's and like I said, I could have been, under the right circumstances, I could have been one of those people who looked at it. I said, it has the cartwheel effect. I don't see hairlines on it. I don't see where somebody has scrubbed it. It looks to me like it has the original luster to it. So there are various degrees. And again, I, like everybody else, have made mistakes. I want to tell you a real quick story about the difference between shininess and original mint luster, okay? And this is a true story, and this is a funny story, and I hope that you'll enjoy it. Many years ago, I was teaching a fundamentals grading class during summer seminar, and I had a person who was actually working with me. His name is Rick Sear, and Rick is a great guy. He is a coin broker. I think he's retired now, or semi-retired, but he at one time brokered one of the $1804. I mean, this man knows his stuff. and he's relied on by serious numismatists who are looking for particular coins. This is an important guy. And for some reason, the class that we were teaching had a very difficult time being able to tell the difference between original mint luster and shininess. And so Rick said he pulled out of his pocket a roll of mint state 1964 quarters. And he said to me, Rod, is there any kind of a cup or bowl here in the class? And sure enough, the very back of the class, there was this little plastic bowl. I couldn't believe it. So I brought the bowl up to Rick, and Rick poured some jewel luster into the bowl. And Rick said to me, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to take one of these original mint 1964 quarters, and I'm going to dip it several times. And when I finish with it, surely you'll be able to tell the difference between shininess, like this quarter is going to show, and original mint luster. Well, we were right before lunchtime. And so we were working up against, we only had a few minutes left. And he dipped it a couple times, and Rick Sear really didn't get the dramatic effect that he was looking for. So Rick said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave the quarter in the bowl of jewel luster, he said, and we're going to break for lunch. And then when we get back, I'll take it out. And surely by that time, it'll just be shiny, and you'll be able to tell the difference between shininess and luster. Well, I don't know what possessed me, but I remembered when he said this, that back at my desk in my office, I had a barber dime that really was so worn, it was just a sliver. Really, it was. And so when everybody broke for lunch, I raced to my office, got the barber dime, came back to the classroom, pulled out the quarter in the jewel luster, and put in the barber dime. Well, everybody in class got there first before Rick, because Rick smokes, and he always liked to finish a cigarette before he walked back into the classroom. So Rick was the very last one to come into the class. Well, all the students knew what was going on. So Rick walks in and he says, okay, surely we'll be able to see the difference between shininess and mint luster. And he walks over and he leans his face over to where the bowl is, and his eyes got as big as moon pies. And the class just broke up. And I was afraid that Rick was going to be angry with me for playing this trick on him. And you know what? To his great credit, he laughed along. And I'm telling you this story now because every time I see Rick at a coin show, that's the first thing he brings up. And he wants me to tell that story to his friends because he loves the story so much. And the kicker to the story is, you know, his name is Rick Sear. And every time now when we talk about a coin that has been dramatically cleaned, we say that it's been seared after Rick. So that's the story. All right. Here's something I've always found interesting. The term improperly cleaned. And what does that mean? So if you take the ANA stance where we say you really shouldn't clean coins, then what does the term improperly clean mean? I mean, is there a way to properly clean the coins? Now, if you're one of the third-party grading companies, the answer is yes. There are really three levels. There are coins that have straight graded, then there are improperly cleaned coins, and then there are detail coins. And what's the difference? Well, improperly cleaned coins are coins that have been cleaned, but they really don't quite know what the method was. All right, it was done in a way that you can tell that it's been cleaned, but you know, we can't tell whether it was done mechanically or whether it was done with a solution. They refer to it, NGC, for example, on their webpage, refers to it as an unskilled attempt at cleaning, okay? When you look at a coin that has been obviously cleaned, there's hairlines there, or, you know, part of it is dirty and other parts are very shiny, that's a details coin. So then the difference between improperly cleaned and details is the level and expertise of the cleaning. And again, this is something, if you want to take a look at NGC page, they will, there's a page that devoted just to that. So what that says to me by insinuation is that at least in NGC's case, if you are able to very slightly, very moderately change a coin's appearance, clean it, so that it's not obvious, that it's okay with NGC. So they don't have the strict rule like the ANA does. And again, I'm not here to criticize NGC or PCGS or ANACS or any of them. And I'm not here to say what they're doing is wrong. I'm here to say that according to the ANA, that if you attempt to clean a coin, it's usually a bad thing. Now, the folks who actually cleaned a coin and it came back straight graded may have used what the ANA suggested about, remember what I said about being absolutely, if you have to or you're going to die, using some mild distilled, using distilled water and some very mild dish soap and patting it dry and not rubbing it. I mean, they may have done a very mild job, and it's okay. But, you know, it's important to understand that, because when I originally saw this label about being improperly cleaned, I'm thinking, well, it's either cleaned or it's not. How can it improperly be cleaned? But there are levels with NGC, and that's how that works. Again, when we're talking about clean coins, and I've been around a lot of coins, usually I can spot coins that have been cleaned a mile away. The left is an example. Do you see how there are areas on the coin that are dirty, like around the stars and in the engraving where Liberty is on the crown of Lady Liberty there? That shows me that the coin had quite a bit of dirt that are in the crevices, and whoever cleaned the coin did a real poor job of attacking that dirt, and that's why some of the coin is dirty while others are not. That just doesn't occur through wear. A coin gets dirty or it doesn't. The right-hand side, the right-hand one is much more subtle, and you might be saying to yourself, well, boy, that's a little bit of an odd color, but maybe that's toning. And you know what? You wouldn't be far off. I mean, if I took a casual look at that coin, I would probably say the same thing. So what I'm suggesting to you is that there are examples where it's very obvious that a coin has been cleaned, and there are examples where not so much. It's interesting where they're both labeled improperly cleaned, but I have a much easier time looking at the left one and saying, yeah, that's a clean coin, as opposed to the one in the right. Just do. And getting back to what I was saying concerning the levels of cleaning, and Rick's here, he said something to me once which made a great deal of sense. And that is, with cleaning, there's never a line, only a zone. And it's that way with grading too, that there's never a definitive line. There's only a general area called a zone. And Rick says that, and I think that that's absolutely true. All right, let's spend the rest of the time talking about cleaning. So are there any questions or comments that somebody wants me to know? Somebody angry with me because I told them never to clean their coins?
A lot of the things that I'm reading, I feel like you address, and like, again, some of them are kind of addressing things to each other.
Which is great. I'm so glad that a conversation is taking place. That shows me that people are interested. That's wonderful.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot of attendance on this class too. Here's one that I wouldn't know how to answer this. How does NGC, and it says PNNA, conserve coins, and is it worth doing in an older coin, i.e. bust dollar, especially if it's been artificially toned?
So when grading companies, third-party grading companies, offer their conserving, first of all, I'd want to say that it better be a coin that has a good amount of value, because it's not cheap. And they're very good at repairing or bringing coins back, especially after, for example, let's say a coin has been scorched for some reason. They're really experts in doing that. But it's not cheap, and deservedly so. I mean, you're having experts working on it, and they know that if they ruin it, you know, there's no going back. I would just say that, you know, it needs to be a coin that's going to be worth it. or it has tremendous sentimental value to you, that you want you want it to look better than whatever had befallen it. I really can't answer the question in any other way. Like I said, it just needs to either have tremendous value, monetary or sentimental value. They can do great things in conserving coins. They aren't miracle workers. No one is. But oftentimes, and I don't know if they still do this, grading companies did this in the past. They would send you a little note with the coin, often back when the days when they were body bag, and they would say, this is actually a good candidate to be conserved. And what that tells me is that they suggest that they can bring this coin to a point where it looks better than it did without it crossing over the line of the cleaning, more of like we were talking about with ancient coins. So I would say just in general, that if this is something very dear to your heart, you might want to give it a try.
Gotcha. Okay. Keith asked, or made a statement, then asked a question. I've got a few proof sets, 60s and 70s, that are water damaged, and some coins have stuff growing on them. Should I bust them out and flip the undamaged coins, or should I discard the damaged coins to the junk pile?
I'm sorry, what are the two options again?
It says bust open and flip the damaged coins,
Uh-huh.
and then discard the damaged ones to the junk pile.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, again, I think it's a good question, and I think it all comes down to value. I mean, how much time and resources do you wish to put in on those coins? Now, I will tell you that a lot of coins from the 1950s, even coins that were in mint and proof sets, for the mint, the 1950s were kind of a low point. Not a great deal of care was put into their final product. And it's very traditional, especially, let's say, with Franklin half dollars. Then in the 1950s, you're going to run across coins that have water spots on them. And that's kind of the way that it happened at the mint. It developed that way. I would leave them be. I mean, I wouldn't open it up and break them out, personally. I mean, but again, you need to answer in a way that satisfies you. But if you're asking me personally, I would kind of leave them as they are. And here's the neat thing about grading. When you're technically grading a coin, everything that happens at the mint should not result in a lower grade for the coin if you're technically grading it. In other words, if you're grading a coin and it suffers from a weak strike, that's not the fault of the coin. That happened at the mint, and it should technically be graded as mint state if it shows no wear, even though it may be very weakly struck. So when we're talking about technical grading, the aspect of that, anything that happened at the mint or because of the mint really shouldn't affect the coin in terms of grading. Now, at market grading, that's a whole different story. I know that, for example, with a lot of coins, that third-party grading companies, if a coin is weakly struck, very rarely will grade a coin above mint state 64. Because again, it's market grading, and they're saying that coin is not valued as highly as a fully struck, in the same example. And they're right. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but there's a big difference between technical grading and market grading. And it would be my advice that I would leave them as they are.
see if I can find a couple new ones. Okay. Excuse me. Couldn't a coin with dirt left in the crevices, but not on the rest of the coin, be a result of a dirty coin being handled or circulated, thereby removing the dirt off some of the coin and not the other crevices?
Yes, but that the areas that are going to be a coin that has been handled that much. Remember, all of us, and this is why we handle coins by holding them at the edge. all of us, even if we have just washed our hands, have oil that leaches out of our skin. And when coins are handled, when business strikes are handled just in a general way, that oil leaches onto the coin. So your answer is yes, there are points, but what I'm trying to say is, when you have a coin that there's sections of the coin that have no hint of dirt whatsoever, and then you have areas of the coin that are very dirty, that tends, and we're talking about coins that are collectible, we're not talking about everyday coins. That leads me to believe that at some point that coin, someone has attempted poorly to clean that coin.
Tony asked, how does a coin collector address a coin returned by PCGS as ungradable due to PVC residue? Can PVC residue be remediated and then resubmitted for third-party grading?
Boy, that's a tough question. For those of you who don't understand PVC, PVC stands for polyvinyl chloride. And polyvinyl chloride was added to flips for coin storage. And the whole idea, and it was a good concept, and the Mint actually used PVC for a while. The whole idea was that it made the holders, the flips, much more soft. And the idea was, before PVC came along, holders were very brittle and they could scratch coins. So PVC was meant to help correct that, keep holders from being very brittle. And it was a good idea. The problem was, what they didn't know, that in some instances, PVC will degrade after a bit of time, and it'll form this really nasty goo, especially on copper coins, and it attacks the surface of the coin, and it's just not good. So in levels where PVC has started to attack the coin, it's not only this green slime that's on it, but it's actually embedded itself in the surface. And I hate to speak for the third-party grading companies because I've never worked for them. And like I said, they do amazing things, but they're not miracle workers. I would tend to think, now I could be wrong, I would tend to think that if you've gotten a coin that has so much of that stuff on it, yeah, it can be removed, but the damage has already happened. I would think that unless we're talking about a very expensive coin, that it would be unlikely a good candidate to be submitted to be conserved. Again, there's always exceptions to the rule. But boy, I tell you, once PVC has happened. Now, the scary thing about PVC is that it doesn't always happen. I mean, there are people who, and here's the thing, I don't want you to be scared. And if you have coins and flips thinking, oh my God, I have a coin that I put into a flip yesterday, it's a really expensive coin. It, is PVC attacking it right now? PVC doesn't work that way. It's a long process. It's not something that happens instantly. So, and dealers who put their coins in these flips with PVC in them all the time, because they know that there's a good possibility that the coin in that flip is going to sell at the next coin show or the one after that. And they're right. And it's not going to attack their coin. But if you are using PVC holders for long-term storage, you're running a risk, especially with coins that are made of copper, because once PVC starts attacking, it's just a really bad thing. I hope we've had some fun. I don't think we've solved any great numismatic answers, but I hope that you've got a little bit of benefit from the time that of my experience with coins. And I hope I've given you something to think about. And I hope that you've enjoyed the busy time that you spent out of your day with me. And I greatly appreciate the time that we have spent with one another. Take care, everyone, and thank you very much. And hopefully I'll run into you soon.